There are so many things that take over our lives, both unintentionally and intentionally. Work, family, friends, and endless responsibilities keep piling up, making us feel like we're caught in an endless whirlwind. The notifications, the calls, the deadlines, all of it keeps our minds from ever getting a break. You feel exhausted, overwhelmed, and wonder why things never seem to settle. I've been there too. My mind was constantly busy, the house was in disarray, and it felt like everything was out of control. But then I realized that change doesn't always have to be big and complicated. Small changes, simple tips can make your life feel lighter and more manageable. In this video, I'll share with you 9 things that took over my life and how I removed them to regain control without feeling overwhelmed. Start your day with real action, not by rushing to grab your phone, but by giving your morning a true moment of silence. The moment you wake up, there's a very brief period when everything has yet to intrude. It's like a blank moment when the outside world is still quiet. There are no notifications, no emails, and nothing urging you to respond. But just one small habit, reaching for your phone, is enough to break that silence. The flood of information instantly rushes in, pulling your mind out of the present before your body even has a chance to wake up. This usually doesn't cause immediate stress. But when your day starts with an overload of external stimuli, your mind easily falls into a passive state. You haven't even had time to experience the morning before you're already reacting to someone else's rhythm. That rush quietly follows you throughout the day. At one point, I realized that every morning I would touch my phone before even sitting up. Just a few minutes, but the sense of tiredness appeared very early, as if the day had already begun before I was ready. When I tried keeping my phone out of reach, the morning became quieter. Simply sitting up, slowly drinking a sip of water, or looking at the light outside the window, nothing grand, but enough to feel present. Keeping your phone out of reach for the first 10 minutes of the day isn't about enforcing strict discipline, but about protecting that brief moment of silence. A short stillness, just enough for the mind to settle and the body to wake up. Mornings will eventually become noisy, but if you start with tranquility, the rest of the day seems lighter because you've chosen to step into it rather than being pulled into it. And if you want to dive even deeper into how small habits can transform your day, be sure to check out the next video where we'll explore more ways to reclaim your time and create a calmer, more productive routine. The next tip. During the day, tasks rarely come in an orderly manner. They pile up, overlap, and it's easy to feel like you're always doing something, but never finishing anything. When you start one task, get pulled into another, and then return to the original task, your mind is interrupted. This distraction doesn't just decrease efficiency, it also keeps your mind in a state of confusion. Switching from one task to another creates a sense of busyness, but it rarely brings a feeling of completion. The day passes with an ever-growing to-do list while your energy drains. Instead of working faster, you just end up feeling more tired. I used to open multiple tasks at once with the thought of doing them in parallel. But the more I did this, the harder it became to finish anything. When I tried to stop, pick just one task, and focus on it until completion, the difference was clear. Not because the task was easier, but because my mind wasn't being pulled in multiple directions. Completing one task before adding another creates a clear stopping point. When a task is closed, even a small one, you feel like you're moving forward instead of just spinning in circles. That feeling of accomplishment brings real satisfaction and helps reduce the stress that accumulates throughout the day. Try dedicating about 15 minutes to fully focus on one task you can complete right away. Set a clear goal, finish it, and then move on to the next. Just that short period of focus will make your day feel more organized, not because there are fewer tasks, but because you're in control of your rhythm. Another habit I can't do without is ensuring I get enough sleep every night. There are days when we think we're tired because of too much work. But more often, the feeling of exhaustion comes from the fact that our bodies haven't had proper rest. When sleep deprivation is prolonged, everything becomes harder. Our minds slow down, focus decreases, and even simple tasks become frustrating. Sleep is not just a time to turn off. It's when your body and mind recover, reorganize, and prepare for the next day. When your sleep cycle is disrupted, your body remains in a constant state of low-level tension, even if you continue to go through your daily routine. This fatigue doesn't go away. It accumulates over time. At first, staying up late felt like a way to push a little further, push to finish tasks, push to make use of time, push not to miss anything. Yet, the more sleep hours were extended, the more sluggish the days felt. When I started going to bed and waking up at more consistent times, the difference was clear. Even without always getting a full night's sleep, my body gradually adapted to a steady rhythm, and mornings no longer felt like a struggle. Getting enough sleep is not a luxury or a reward after completing tasks. It's the foundation that makes everything run more smoothly. When your sleep is stable, your energy throughout the day fluctuates less. You focus better and you don't have to force yourself to get things done. Start with a small change. Choose a relatively fixed bedtime and stick with it for a few weeks. It doesn't have to be perfect, just consistent. When sleep becomes a priority, you'll realize many tasks during the day feel lighter, not because there's less to do, but because you're no longer too tired to face them. This is a tip that doesn't create an immediate effect, but over time, its impact becomes very clear. Some changes are quiet, but gradually make life feel much lighter. And this is one of the changes I've found really effective in simplifying life. Seasonal shopping often brings a temporary sense of novelty. A piece of clothing seems right for the moment for when it's needed, or simply because it's being promoted everywhere. But over time, these items pile up, occupy space, and are rarely used. The home becomes crowded, not because there's a lack of space, but because there are too many things we don't truly need. When the habit of shopping less kicks in your living space also changes. Fewer items mean less to organize, less to clean, and less visual clutter. More importantly, you no longer have to constantly decide whether to keep or throw out things you bought on a whim. I once realized that I often bought things just because it's that time of year, but many of these items were barely used or quickly became redundant. When I started to slow down before each purchase decision, the feeling was different. Not because I was lacking, but because everything that came into my home had a clearer purpose. Before buying an item, take a moment to ask yourself, do I really need this for my current life? If I don't buy it today, will my life be affected? Just asking that question can help you avoid many unnecessary purchases. Reducing seasonal consumption isn't about denying yourself joy. It's about being more selective about what you bring into your living space to make your home lighter and your mind too. After simplifying my possessions, here's a tip that's directly related to the mind and often overlooked. Not everything that drains you comes from work or physical clutter. The next habit may be hard at first, but it's truly necessary learning to say no. A lot of pressure in life comes from trying to meet too many expectations. We say yes because we're reluctant to decline, afraid of disappointing others, or because we think we should do it. But when we agree to too many things, our time and energy are gradually depleted, and the important things get pushed aside. Saying no doesn't make you selfish. On the contrary, it helps you become more aware of your limits. When you stop taking on requests that aren't a good fit, you create more space for focused work, for rest, or simply for yourself. I occasionally find it hard to say no, but the more I practice saying no clearly and gently, the more I realize the relief that follows. It's not about avoiding responsibility, but about choosing to protect my time and energy consciously. Saying no doesn't have to be harsh or rude. Sometimes a simple, sincere, and firm sentence is enough. When a request or invitation doesn't align with your current priorities, declining is the way to maintain balance in the long run. Once you start setting clear boundaries, life becomes less overwhelming. Not because there's less to do, but because you no longer have to stretch yourself for things that weren't yours to begin with. And here's a moment to pause, not to push further, but to let go a bit. There are many things in life that are out of our control: the weather, other people's personalities, past events. When our minds keep dwelling on complaining about these things, your energy gets drained without making any real change. Complaining doesn't make things better. In fact, it just makes you more tired, stressed, and more likely to feel stuck. I used to notice that every time I complained, my mind felt like it was stuck in a dead-end place. Even just thinking, "Why is this happening?" made my head feel heavy. But when I tried shifting my focus to small things I could control, like tidying my desk, making a to-do list for the day, or simply focusing on my breath, the weight lifted dramatically. Not because the issue disappeared, but because I stopped pouring my energy into things beyond my control. Stopping complaining doesn't mean becoming passive. On the contrary, it helps you become more mindful in choosing what should you accept and what deserves action. Energy is preserved for things that can be improved: work relationships, living space, or simply your mental state. Cutting down on complaints isn't about forcing positivity. It's about learning to channel your energy in the right places, making your mind lighter and your life quieter from the inside. When you practice this, everything seems to flow more smoothly, with a greater sense of control and inner peace, even when the world around you remains turbulent. Next, here's a tip about simplifying emotions, one you can't see but has a deep impact. Every relationship you maintain takes up a portion of your mental energy. When there are too many shallow, negative connections, or ones that make you feel like you're constantly putting on a front, life gradually becomes exhausting without any clear reason. The problem isn't communication skills, but how your energy is being scattered. True peace comes from having a few people around who you can be yourself with, without the need for too much explanation or walking on eggshells. I noticed that peace appeared when I had people around who allowed me to be me, without constantly second-guessing every word. That's where I could recharge my energy. By carefully choosing your relationships, your mental space becomes lighter. Less drama, fewer expectations, more sincerity. This doesn't mean cutting everyone off, but rather prioritizing connections that provide safety, positivity, and help you grow. Quality relationships help you live slower, deeper, and with less social stress, a form of spiritual minimalism well worth practicing. Instead of trying to connect with everyone, selecting those who truly matter gives you more time and energy for the important people and moments. When you practice this, you'll realize that less but better is always much more effective than many yet scattered. Life becomes lighter, relationships become more meaningful, and your spirit is naturally protected. Now, here's a very practical tip that's often overlooked when it comes to decluttering. Many people start decluttering room by room, but this approach only addresses a small part of the problem. Each room might seem slightly messy, but scattered items everywhere make you think the space is still fine. In reality, clutter arises from the way we look at each room individually rather than seeing the bigger picture. When you group all your items by category: clothes, books, paperwork, or small items, the whole picture becomes clearer. At this point, the decision to keep or discard becomes more decisive instead of hesitating over each individual item scattered around the house. The first time you see an entire group of items together, it can be overwhelming. I experienced this when I gathered all my books and papers from various rooms into one place. In that moment, I could clearly see what I truly needed and what I was just holding on to out of habit or the desire to keep for security. This approach greatly reduces the sense of overwhelm compared to decluttering room by room, and it helps organize everything more logically. The space becomes tidier, easier to maintain long term, and decluttering is no longer a weekly pressure. Decluttering by category also helps you understand your relationship with your belongings. Each item is viewed as part of the whole, its value and usage frequency are assessed, which leads to smarter decisions. This is not just a way to make your home neat, but also a way to feel in control and at ease in your living space, where every item has a reason for being there. When you do this, decluttering becomes a process that is both practical and meaningful, bringing long-term lightness and comfort. Finally, here's a tip that's more spiritual but directly impacts how you live and feel every day. When work becomes the sole measure of your self-worth, your emotions are tied to your job performance. A day of poor work, an unsatisfactory result, or a not-so-positive review can make you question your own value. The problem is that work is only one part of life, but you're allowing it to define your entire being. In modern life, we often subtly attach our worth to work. We're accustomed to asking ourselves what we've done, what we've achieved, and how far we've progressed. Gradually, these questions overshadow other aspects of life: health, emotions, relationships, or the little things that make us feel truly alive. When I separated my self-worth from work, the pressure lifted significantly. Work is still important, but it no longer holds the only place where I prove my worth. My personal value also comes from how I take care of my health, maintain relationships, nurture personal hobbies, and allow myself to live according to my own pace. I no longer carry the heavy feeling when work doesn't go as planned because it no longer defines who I am. When you don't place all your worth on your work, you allow yourself to fail, rest, and learn without feeling like a failure. You can strive without punishing yourself and try without losing gentleness towards yourself. This helps maintain a more stable mind and, over time, a more balanced life. You are not the work you do. You are a whole person, and that alone is enough value. After starting to apply these tips in my life, I've noticed everything feels much lighter. Small changes, which might seem insignificant, have helped me regain control over my pace and reduce stress each day. I'm sure you'll feel the difference too once you give them a try. Pick one tip that feels easiest to apply and start with that. Maybe it's keeping your phone out of reach when you wake up, or simply learning to say no when you're overwhelmed. These small adjustments will create a big shift in your life. And don't forget, the next video will be an upgrade to these tips, where we'll dive deeper into the things that have been quietly bothering our lives and how to tackle them. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like and subscribe to stay updated for more tips.